Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your co-host Dave, and this time we have the full crew back in session. Please say hi to Crimson, MK, Tom Brady, Rio, and Zyphox. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to have everybody back.
Welcome back, guys.
What's going on?
All right, we have to talk about the topic everybody has been talking about. So, in this podcast, we're going to talk about two things. One, the rumors about the league, being that NRS is working on possibly on some kind of Marvel game. Again, nobody knows what it is. So we're gonna start with that discussion first. I guess my first question is, what were your initial reactions, and please do not mention MK11 on that has nothing to do with MK11. We'll talk about MK11 in a moment here. What was your initial reaction as soon as you heard those leaks? You can say anything that's on your mind. Crimson?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only big surprise, right, is the fact that it might involve Marvel, right? Other than that, we know, of course, they were working on a new game. We weren't sure exactly what it was. I think the leaks didn't go into detail, really, whatever they were. So whoever heard what, all they heard was Marvel. But obviously, it's like NetherRealm is owned by Warner Brothers, right? So Warner Brothers is probably not going to make a game without their characters in it. And they're definitely not going to make a game for a competitor's franchise, right? Because they don't own Marvel Comics at all. All that stuff is Disney. So they're definitely not going to make a Disney franchise game without Warner Brothers IP in it. So we're guessing it's probably Marvel versus DC. And yeah, I mean, listen, if you like Injustice games, like, this is probably good news for you. I think it's good news for the company as a whole, because a lot of the problems and stuff that we've been talking about, both for this game and also some previous games, come from the fact that this company has one of the fastest turnarounds for AAA games, probably of any company I've ever seen. Like, to produce a full AAA level game in 2 years is nearly impossible, which is why no one ever does it. And even for those games that come out every year, like Call of Duty and stuff, I think they're like 3 different studios that make the Call of Duty games so that they can release
used
them
to have
every year.
3. They went back to 2.
Okay, so there are 2 different studios that alternate in order to put those games out, and a lot of them are just coats of paint basically on the old game. So there are 2 things that are really important here. Number one is that for the first time in, I think, 20 years, they have more time to actually build a new game, which means that some of the things that you can't do when you're rushing from one title to the next, they can do now. And the second thing that's important is, if it's true that this is a next-gen title, they need to give time for people to actually get PS5s. Like, I don't know how many people here in this call have them, but a lot of people don't have them yet. And it seems like that problem is not going to go away for at least another 6 months and maybe longer. So
It's going to be about a year.
Yeah, maybe even a year. So I think overall, this is a really great thing, both for NRS as a company and also for their franchises as a whole, to have extra time to really go through, redo some code, some old code that's been in these games since literally MK9, have time to really polish the mechanics for the new game, and to make sure that everyone has time to actually go out and get a next generation system so that they can sell enough copies to justify it. So yeah, that's my reaction. Overall, I'm excited to see what they do.
Tom, go ahead.
I think I'm not really that surprised. I had heard rumors of a Marvel vs. DC game before. I think it's not another question that it's probably going to be similar to the way the Marvel vs. series was. I believe they're going to also maybe try to mix and tag here as well. There are some people who think we might get an announcement at E3. Not even close. I would say the game is probably a year and a half, and that's lowballing it. More likely 2 years away, and I think that's more realistic. Which again, normally they turn games around in 2 years. They just recently started working on it, so I think it's good, obviously, that there's some news coming out of there. I mean, they've been silent for a while, and even though it's not out of there, it's more like an unofficial thing. Uh, I think it's exciting to have some news to talk about for once of a future title. It's something that we're not really going to see anything of or get anything concrete of for quite a while. But I think it's definitely very interesting. You know, I think a lot of people got kind of bored of the whole Injustice IP. Just in Injustice 1 was pretty fun. I feel like Injustice 2 was a cut and paste of Injustice 1, just with a lot of stuff that people actually found fun that played the game. They tried to tone it really down. So it was a very Dakota saying here, spaghetti with no sauce title in general, with how they kind of like toned down a lot of the over the top stuff. But that's what made Injustice what it was. So I feel like rather than going that route again, they're pretty much taking the DC and Marvel characters, and they're going to put them in a different game. It's not going to be Injustice. It's going to be its own thing. And I think that's really good. And I think what we're going to talk about, and it means a great thing for this community as far as what we can expect in general over the next 2 years while we're waiting for this.
We'll address that later. Rio, go ahead, please.
Well, I'm glad it's not going to be Injustice 3 because I probably would have not bought the game. I would just skipped it over. But I'm happy that it's going to be Marvel vs. DC for the people that are looking forward to that. I personally hope NRS releases like a Shaolin Monks 2 or remaster of older MK games in the meantime.
Zyphox?
I'm actually pretty excited about this just because of the prospect of getting a lot of new people in. Like every single game that comes out for NRS, there's always a bunch of new people that get in for the first time. Love that. But this particular game is going to be even better because it's going to be Marvel that's coming. And those people will have, obviously the Marvel fanboys they come in droves, right? Not only is it just like the Marvel versus Capcom players too that might also just come, just regular Marvel fans in general. That's all good news for NRS community, especially any content creators. So another thing is that we're not getting a game. Like we would have had a game by now. It's already May 1st, 2 years after the fact of a game coming out in 2019. So because it's going to be a while, I'm super excited for them to come up with new features that haven't been in their games yet that I've been wanting. Like, for example, a character creator. Can you just... Come on, guys. Create a Combat was not that bad in Armageddon. It just wasn't. And if you were to be able to you'd be able to revolutionize fighting games if you can make a good character creator in your game. Make your own superhero. Now that there's Marvel versus DC, you have no excuse, right? To make your own fighter in the image of your favorite superheroes, combine and make your own, right? Have all these special moves that you can make, and you can combine and you can balance them properly because you have all this time to do so, right? And then you allow people to fight each other with their own created superhero. I mean, if NRS, just hire me. Paulo, if you're listening to this, I got you. Don't worry about it. I'll lead the way. Anyways, shameless plug aside. Yeah.
Well, I hope they don't hire you because that's one of the stupidest ideas I've ever heard. But if you want my opinion, yes, it is. If you want my opinion, is what I really want to see because I knew we were going to get into this topic, and I have actually thought about this in advance. If they just take and make this game Injustice, it's going to be a failure. I think you need a much faster gameplay, at least Mortal Kombat 9 like, at least like that. You need to get rid of all easy zoning characters and make them difficult to use. That's almost a given. That everybody knows that. You need to make the game more combo heavy. That's what the high level players want to see. That's what the casual audience wants to see. Anything that's like no combos, like we have this garbage that we have now, it needs to be changed entirely. You need again faster gameplay. Zoning, if it's in a game, it needs to be a lot more difficult. Combos need to be in the game. You need traditional archetypes. If I'm a zoning character, I should be able to zone. If you want to do Oki and you want to destroy me on Oki, you should be able to do that. I think all that should be in the game. And obviously, these are just very, very fundamental ideas that need to be, they need to get it to work. Obviously, that's up to them, the way they implement that. But I think you need to do some of the stuff that the community has been requesting, especially with the stuff that they dislike. With obviously, Fatal Blow's gone. That needs to be Breakaway needs to be rethought of. All that stuff that people don't like about the game needs to be reconsidered and needs to never come back. A variation system, throw that right in the garbage, never to be seen again. But I want to know what my other co-host think. Crimson, give me.
Wait, why would they bring back zoning? People didn't like that in Injustice 2.
If they don't bring it back,
That would be a
fine.
huge mistake.
I think if they don't bring it
I
back,
don't think zoning is gonna get people hyped for this game.
fair enough. If they don't bring it back, I'm fine. Give me like really strong offense like Tremor, I'll be happy. But give me,
or archetypes.
yeah, give me. Well, I guess archetypes instead of zoning, which again, you're getting into like certain biases. But again, if this for the community wants, that's fine.
Well, I'm just saying, if we're mentioning things like don't bring Breakaway back because people don't like it, this and that. Well,
I
how do
don't
you
think
bring
it'll
back
be that.
zoning?
I don't think it's going to be that way game at all. I think it's going to be more like the Marvel series, anime type of fighting game.
I hope so. Well, let's get each.
I do
Why
not.
would
I
they-
do.
why
I do
would they
not
do that?
believe
No
it will be a
chance.
traditional.
No
I do
chance.
not believe it will be a traditional game.
Hold on. Let have each one of you respond without being interrupted. Crimson, go ahead, please.
Yeah, why would they do that? Why would they rip off Capcom?
No, they won't rip it off, but it'll be like it'll be not anime style, but it'll be like the tag style. I think it won't be the traditional footsies kind of game. It'll be an over the top superhero game, not like Marvel, but along that theme. Which then leads to the question that only works because Capcom allows two games to live at the same time. One more traditional and one that's like that. And that's another dilemma because those type of games are a style. That's not about the usual crap that we try to feed people. You got to adapt to the game of no. That's just a different style of game altogether. So again, that really leads into our next topic of what they're going to do for us with stuff we have or going into the future. But I don't think it'll be the.
Hold on. That's not the question. The question is, what would you like to see, and what do you think is the right direction?
I would like to see. I think this is a great chance they have to establish a system in which two games that are played differently live at the same time. Yeah. They tried to basically take Injustice and say, well, it's a superhero game, but you're gonna play footsies and whatever. And Injustice 1 was kind of crazy. Injustice 2, they were like, no, we're gonna make sure it's this. And I watch a lot of DC films. I've never seen any of them play footsies or even talk about it. So I think that's really the type of games that people expect for superheroes. I think that's what we're going to get. And I think it's a good way to do that and establish hey, you can have an MK title and this title, and maybe you don't like that, what people will say, consider boring, where traditional zoning, traditional archetypes, footsies, neutral zoning, grapplers, etc. Or you can kind of have a crazy over-the-top game with DC heroes and Marvel heroes. This way, you don't force people to make a choice, and in reality, because they don't have to make a choice, some will play one and then play the other on the side, and vice versa. You broaden the community by bringing new players in. You don't force them to make a choice between one title or another, as both can coexist, and everybody wins.
Crimson, go ahead.
I'm just not seeing this characterizations of Injustice 2 as this footsie game. Was Black Adam, was he really playing footsies when he's dive kicking all over the screen, or Brainiac, or Atom, or Cheetah, or Black Canary, or any of these characters? If anything,
they tried to make it like a traditional fighting game, and it came out half and half. I don't think people want that. I think people don't want anything close to a traditional fighting game with superheroes. So I think they're going to make it over the top, no holds barred kind of game.
I mean, I don't know. I think the people who like Injustice have traditionally not always liked MK, and people who have liked MK have not always liked Injustice. And I think we've kind of there's been some overlap just because, like a lot of top players are going to go to where the money goes. But for example, they ran a $1,000 Injustice 2 exhibition. And I think it was like Mr. Aquaman and Crusher that ran it about a week or so ago.
Yeah, I saw.
And some of the people who played in that exhibition, as well as a lot of names that I saw in the stream chat that I recognized, a lot of those are people you don't see in MK games, right? They don't show up for MKX or MK11. They show up for Injustice. So I think to some extent, these games really are.
They show up for Injustice. Can you please tell me what you started your statement with? Did I watch what Injustice 2 tournament?
Wait,
A
what
$1,000 one. If I watched a Marvel 2 tournament, they would play for 1 penny. You cannot say the same for Injustice 2. There's a difference in people who play a game for $1,000 and people who play a game because they actually love it.
Yeah, but
Injustice 2.
The fans don't care. Like, these same people have been playing in free.
If that was the case, then you would need $1,000.
No, but this is what I'm saying. The people who actually like Injustice, those people have been playing in free Injustice 2 tournaments for the entire last year or more.
Sure.
It's the Mortal Kombat players, the super hardcore MK11 guys that you have to give the money to show up for the Injustice tournament.
I would like to make a point real quick, if you don't mind, if you're done with your point, Shadow. Because Brady keeps saying about this, like, our games don't live past a certain point, and obviously not what like the two communities split. Like, you know how like some Marvel players play Street Fighter and Capcom people.
Yeah,
but that's also true in the opposite as well. Like, some people don't touch Street Fighter and they just play Marvel, and those are the people that are still playing Marvel now.
True.
Right? Why did Marvel 3 ever stop tournaments to begin with? Right? They didn't stop.
But my point is, their communities coexist with, and the NRS scene, it's usually been either or. Like, one is in and one
but
there's only one in season at the same time, right?
I understand, but that's because of what? Like, when was the last Capcom sponsored Marvel 3 thing ever? What was the last thing they did?
Well, Marvel 3 is older.
Exactly, but they didn't. My thing is that they actually didn't do that. It was just that the community itself drove Marvel.
Wait, why is everybody ignoring the new Marvel game that came out a few years ago, Marvel Infinite? Why is that being
it's trash. Just ignore that. We're not even talking about that.
I thought NRS only makes bad games. Crazy.
It wasn't well received.
Exactly.
Wait, so Capcom makes bad games?
No, but I mean, Zyphox, what I mean is, it was not uncommon at huge majors to see not one game main stage, one game side. Street Fighter and Marvel for a long time were the two main stage games, were the two main event games. NRS, it only had that once, and that was the Evo for Injustice, the first one. And even that wasn't. Both of them were main stage games, but not a final day game. MK9 was main stage on it was a stage game on Saturday, and on Sunday, Injustice was on the main stage. And after that, if you wanted two NRS games, you're going to hold one in your hotel room, and that's how it's always been at Evo.
Right. But
and every tournament, pretty much after that.
But I want to point out as a reason as to why that is.
Sure.
The reason why that is the same thing that happened in Marvel 3. And eventually, the community stopped supporting it. Right? But not only just that, I think it just so happened that a two-game type system, like, it was only allowed to really coexist. Like, Marvel and Street Fighter were able to coexist like that because there was a community demand, and in that community is where the grassroots even began. Most of these people that started their grassroots tournaments started with these games. Marvel has been, Marvel 2, the original Marvel vs. Capcom, all these games came out. NRS just made Injustice. So they didn't have any basis to really gather a community like these other games did to bring them to the point where now two games can be main stage. And these TOs only had enough time to put that occasion one time, which was Street Fighter and Marvel for a while. And you said, as you've seen, they literally just said, like, at some point, Marvel just stopped being a thing. And that's just true for our games. It just so happens that our communities have not been around long enough, and they didn't have the staying power because a lot of them did end up, being loyal to NRS and started switching over. And then those Injustice players that only played Injustice, either there wasn't enough for them or they weren't good enough to carry the content with it. I don't know. Who knows?
I disagree a little because Rio has brought this up many times, and I think all of us have agreed. The games didn't whatever because the people weren't around to support them. They didn't want them supported. At the end of MKX, people were like, let it die. Bring on Injustice 2.
Yeah, I was going to mention, when you said the NRS community plays for money, do you remember that 10K tournament from MKX that 60 people showed up for? I don't even think they
Well, that's
played for
because
money.
at the very end of the game, people have not been, I wish we could support it. At the end of Injustice 1, people were like, please give us MK. The hell with Injustice. At the end of MKX, the community was like, this game, we're done. The best player said it was a bad game. Bring on Injustice 2. At the end of Injustice 2, they were like, this game sucks. It's shit. Give me MK11. And at the end of MK11, they're saying, this game sucks. It's shit. Bring on the next game. So nobody is saying, let's keep supporting these games. What they say is, this game is not good. Give us the next one.
This is what I'm confused about. Why are people hyped for the next game?
Well, I'm just saying that's how the community... Rio, do you not agree that's what our community does every time?
No, yeah, but I'm just confused as to why are people hyped for the next game.
I'm not even hyped for it. I'm not even
because for me personally, it's impossible.
I'm not hyped
it's
for the game.
It's impossible for me to look forward to any NRS game after MKX. I cannot feel that way that I did before MKX came out, and then when I played it, I refuse to ever put myself in that position again to feel that way.
I'm not excited for the game. I'm excited because I think it's going to take 2 years to make. What that means for our community now.
I think the answer to that question, we're getting a little bit off topic, but it's fine. The answer to the question is very easy. The MK11 is stagnant. People don't like it. Some people obviously do like it. Most people don't. The consensus is pretty obvious if you read Twitter, read Reddit, read Test Your Might, read YouTube comments. I mean, it's pretty straightforward in my opinion. And obviously, people are thirsty for new content, especially. And this was going to be my next question, especially if whatever the new game, what does it do for MK11? We don't know. There just has not been any announcements. They have been very quiet. Well, they've been quiet in general. They haven't said anything, so people are obviously very impatient. And I want to ask each one. Well, go ahead.
Well, I was
just going to ask, what does this leak mean for MK11, if anything?
Well, I think what it means is that you have. Well, I think ultimately the timeline was clearly, as we've all pointed out, Krim has pointed it out many times on this podcast, that they wanted to take a slower method with patching because people have always complained they patch too fast. So I do think that there was a lot that was left unfinished because they just, for time reasons, and they just weren't sure where they wanted to go with it. So what they did was, rather than make a knee-jerk patch and start reslotting stuff and changing properties of stuff and, okay, let's overhaul the breakaway and the meter regen and all this stuff, and characters, let's hand out all these nerfs and buffs, whatever. I figured they were going to wait the entire Pro Series out to make any major change. Kind of see how that played out once the Pro Series final was over, and then kind of go in and say, okay, they have made statements in the past that they had planned to go in and change this or that or the other, and I feel like they were going to take a hard look at that and go in and do that. Unfortunately, the Pro Series literally happened when they locked the entire planet down, and the USA has been on lockdown longer than most places. They just recently started working again, so they had to go pretty much an entire year. And I don't think they were able to start on a new title until recently, and were not really able to really work on any new MK11 content that would actually be something that people want. So I think now, and of course, then the new year came around and people were like, well, what are we going to do? There's no Pro Series. With no Pro Series, why are we going to play the game? What's going to happen? There's no content, no Pro Series, no money. So they scrambled, they organized the Pro Series, and because it has to be done in several regions across a billion time zones, it's going to take several months. But then, of course, they really can't do anything super altering when there's a tournament every week where you're trying to qualify for a chance to win 10 grand in each region. So I figure E3 Online is this year. They canceled it last year. It's a great chance for NetherRealm to. The Pro Series will be over. They can change the game however they see fit. I think they're going to announce not just an overhaul where they do a lot of major changes to the game system, like fatal blows, breakaway, etc. A lot of things people have been concerned about, but also the things that people like myself have talked about. How the game is very bland; it gets very boring. Um, and a lot of people like to say, "Oh, if you were winning, you whatever." I mean, look, MKX was not my cup of tea, but I never put the game down. I went to pretty much every tournament. I played it. I grinded it throughout its entire life, and I had many close calls to get in the top 8, but never made a top 8 at a major. Never won a major. So even though I wasn't winning or like one of the best players in the world, I still found enough enjoyment to never put the game down. To me, with MK11, it's not a matter of grind the game. It's a matter of if I grind this game, I'm going to fall asleep. It literally takes some of that away from you. It's just not interesting enough to keep you invested. And that's just for me, of course. For others, it's different.
But what about Injustice 2? You stopped playing after like 2 months.
That had nothing to do with the game. That nothing. I was busy with other stuff and had nothing to do with the game. But
Okay, so you actually like that game.
I mean, yeah, I found it enjoyable. If I wasn't busy doing a lot of other stuff, I probably would have played it. But so I feel like we're going to get that announcement of something major for MK11, something that's going to keep MK11 going for a long period of time. And I don't think it's beyond the remote possibility that we actually get a remake of some sort of either MK9, Injustice 1 with GGPO, or both. Something that they can monetize. MK11 is not to the point where they're going to now monetize 100 million different characters over the next 2 years. I feel like they're going to make one last product for MK11 they can monetize and give us another product that they can also monetize so they also have revenue going into the next 2 years.
Fair enough. Crimson, what do you think as far as the effects on MK11 on this leaked project they're working on?
I don't think anything will change. We think it's changing because we're just knowing this now, but the truth is all this stuff is planned years in advance, right? They don't just wake up one day and say, all right, let's start today. We're going to work on a new game. So they've known about this for probably years. I think the more important impact comes from two things. Actually, really three things. The first was that, if you guys remember, just before MK11 came out, there was a big thing in the media. There were articles on a lot of websites saying NRS is working their employees too hard. There's too much crunch. There are too many hours. There are not enough breaks. They're going straight from one game to another, and they're basically, like people are working too much. And so I think at that time there was a statement that came out that said, it was like some weeks later or whatever, they said, basically like we hear the concerns, we understand, and we're going to adjust the pacing of everything so that we're not having everyone crunch so much, right? So that was the first big pace adjustment that happened, where they said, okay, we're going to spread things out a little bit so that people aren't having to sleep under their desks every weekend or whatever it was, And I know that at the company, that was actually a badge of honor. Like, there are a lot of people who really love working there and will happily sleep under their desk. And they didn't see a problem with it. But once it hit the media, then it was like they had to do something about it, So that was the first thing. Then the major thing was COVID, right? And people talk about this and people say, yeah, well, why didn't that affect Capcom and this and that? And people don't realize, like, Japan has only had as many cases as we've had deaths. Like, there are more people who died here than even got COVID at all in Japan, right? Most of the other fighting game devs are not under a state of perpetual lockdown, but most of the other fighting game devs are all in Asia, where they're doing a much better job of handling the pandemic than we did. So the situation at NRS is pretty unique to American companies, and unfortunately, it meant that everyone had to be out of the office. And you just can't, even testing alone, if you look at the QA staff, when you hire people on contract to come in for a certain number of months, you cannot trust all of those people to send them a full build of an unreleased product at home. You just can't do it. And so I think that once they spread everything out, that COVID was actually what killed the pace, and that the recovery from COVID is what's going to make possibly the biggest difference in what they're able to do. I'm sure they've wanted to do more than they've been able to do. And then the third thing is, on Twitter and stuff like that, there have been a lot of people who have been announcing their departures from NRS recently. And that includes some people who are like pretty far up the food chain. And so that's something where it just takes time to replace those people. If you don't have your full team together and you're also down some people because of COVID and the contract people that you can't keep on board, then it takes time to build a team for a new game, much less to do that and work on an old game at the same time. So my guess is, if anything happens for MK11, it's going to be after we've kind of recovered a bit from COVID, which it seems like we're getting closer with vaccines, and it's going to be after they've had time to get back to a full staff, to hire people to fill these vacancies and kind of get back to full strength. And once they're there, I think, if it's going to be a couple of years before a new game, it almost doesn't even make sense from Warner Brothers' perspective to let MK11 sit for a couple of years and release nothing, to make no money, to have nothing to sell. So I would guess that once they're back to full strength, they will do something for MK11.
All right, Rio, what do you think?
Well, what's going to happen to MK11 now that the new game's being announced? The same thing that's happened every time. The people are going to keep playing this game, MK11, until the new game's announced. Then when the new game's announced, most people are going to play it. And only the hardcore players are going to keep playing MK11 like every other game that's happened before.
But as far as like a patch, do you think one is coming or not?
I mean, I don't think it matters for the community. I think they made up their mind and they don't like the game. So even if a patch does come or not, I don't really think it's going to matter.
Zyphox.
Like I don't see this patch having. I see this patch having literally zero impact on changing anything.
From NRS's perspective or from the community's perspective?
Just in general, I think if they were release this massive giant overhaul with 10 new characters, everybody has new moves, whatever, next week, I think after a month, whatever the patch, it would go back to how it is, and people wouldn't care and move on.
All right, Zyphox, what do you think?
Can you repeat the original question? I got
It's okay.
Got lost.
What do you think? What do you think the effect is, if any, of the new leaked game on MK11? As far as, are they going to patch? Are they not going to patch? And to what extent?
Well, I don't think it'll affect them particularly.
You're breaking up.
Doing MK11.
You're breaking up.
I guess it's cat's eye, guys. Sorry, can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, cat's out of the bag, guys. No, they caught us. Guess we're gonna just not do anything MK11 now. Like, I don't think that's happening. If they're gonna come out with anything, they're gonna come out with it. If it's planned for MK11, they're not gonna be like, guys, literally just scratch everything. Like, that's it. They caught us. No, that's not gonna happen.
Zyphox, can I ask you an honest question?
Yeah.
Do you really want NRS to waste resources patching MK11 instead of using all that to make the next game good?
But listen to
like,
what we're asking.
Is anybody
ourselves. Here? Listen to what you're asking.
No, but I'm saying
think about this for a second. If there was no leaks at all and they were just going along, okay, yeah, we're making this game on the side, no one knows that we're doing this, and they had something planned for MK11 still, like either a patch or more characters, whatever, do you think that they're just going to stop whenever a leak comes out about the game?
No, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about what is your opinion? Do you really, is that what you want? Do you want them to use some resources for MK11 instead of pouring all of it into the next game?
I mean, this is what I think. I think that if the game is still a ways out, right? If we're still going to wait for this game for another 2 years, for example, and this game doesn't come out till 2023, then it's okay, because we're going to need that content for MK11. But it really depends on when this game comes out. We don't know. We have leaks.
Well, actually, it doesn't matter because there's a bunch of new fighting games coming out. which will keep people busy until then.
That's fine. Yeah, that too. But I'm just saying, like, NRS, they've been pretty efficient money makers for Warner Brothers. Pretty efficient. Let me just give you some stats here. In October, I think it was, Ed Boon said that they had sold 8 million copies. If you multiply that, that's $480 million. And
Yeah, no, I'm not doubting that they know how to make money. What I'm asking is, you would be willing to drop more money down to purchase MK11 content?
yeah, I would. Yes, I would say that at this point, since we're going the long game here, right? Because Street Fighter V came out in 2015. It's been 6 years. They're still getting content. They're still playing the game competitively, right?
Right, but that only affects the people that really like that game.
Exactly. So, wouldn't that in turn also affect MK11 players that really like this game? Because you guys take the outspoken, loud people of who hate this game.
No, like, the people that like the game, of course, are going to buy the content and want to play it more.
Exactly.
But I'm just asking for your personal preference. And if you guys in the call want to also chime in, it's like, would you guys be down to drop more cash on this MK11 product?
I'm not understanding here. Is Zyphox saying basically the MK haters who are in the minority but vocal, who ruin the fun for the millions and the millions of the people who love MK11? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that if we're looking at it from that point of view, that the one you just explained, then, like Rio said, all these people that are still buying content for Street Fighter V are still going to be MK11 players. I love this game. They're going to buy MK11 content.
No, yeah, I get that, but I'm not talking about like the
okay.
mass would do. I'm saying it's like a personal question. Like, for example, if they release content for MKX right now with DLC, I wouldn't buy it because I don't like MKX.
Okay, what I would.
So I'm just curious what you would do.
Okay,
I would buy some.
So you would pay for it. Okay, I would buy it as well, providing they completed the game.
But wait. Why would they complete the game? They've never completed a game before.
Okay, well, if they didn't complete the game,
why would it be different this time?
If they kept everything,
MK9 wasn't complete. MKX wasn't. None of these games.
If they kept it just the way it was and added characters, no, I would not.
No, I'm just confused as to why you think that they're going to complete this game when they've never done that before.
Because they have 2 years to do it now. If they go this long and don't complete the game, I think it sends.
Yeah, but with this knowledge, you knowing that, why would you drop more money for this, and why wouldn't you just want them to use a resource for the next game then? Like, me personally, I'm gonna pass on buying more content. I would just rather than make the next game.
Capcom had that choice. Capcom came out of
right,
the pandemic.
but Capcom has different.
So what you're saying is
different fan base.
So you're saying they care more about their community than NetherRealm, and NetherRealm doesn't give a shit.
No, what I'm saying is Capcom probably has more players that want to drop DLC. Like, buy that
Capcom
stuff.
did more than DLC. They overhauled the game. Why would not Mortal Kombat do that?
I mean, they've done it before.
I'm just saying, like, they have 2 years.
I'm just very confused at the talking point. They're going to complete the game when they've never completed a game before.
Well, they haven't had 2 extra years without another title coming out to do it.
All right, so you're saying if they had 2 extra years to work on MK11, the game would be complete. I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are going to do things as far as freeing up a lot of things. I think they're going to go less conservative. I think they're going to...
To be honest, with this knowledge of knowing that they're working on a new fighting game, I'd rather them just use all the time for that new fighting game.
So you think they're going to go the next 2 years and say nothing about MK11?
No, I'm saying what I would want them to do. Obviously, I'm not up there running the show,
Okay,
right?
I got you.
They're probably going to do more DLC and make money because they're trying to make money. But if it was up to me, I'd rather them make a quality product that's going to be really good.
Well, MK11 is not far off from a quality product. The problem is it's just very, very boring and too universal. And I think that just becomes because they were never able to finish it up. COVID. MK11 really only got one real good year of DLC. And the second year was they were completely handicapped, by COVID. So they really never even had a full life cycle for the game. And
all right, well, okay. So the people that dropped $160 from MK11 and they don't like it, do you really think they're going to drop more money for it for this next patch?
Well, an overhaul wouldn't cost any money, and then they could add DLC characters on top of the overhaul.
So I'm the only person who's called that wouldn't buy the next MK11.
Well, what do you
DLC.
think they're going to do? Well, your prediction. What do you think they're going to do?
I hope they don't make any more content so that the next game could be amazing.
So-
That's what I want them to do.
Okay, but
they're not going to listen to
Okay,
me.
so what do you think they'll do? Just characters?
I think they're just going to release more combat packs, a lot of DLC, a lot of skins to buy, stuff like that. Like you said, they want to monetize. Obviously, they're a company. They're smart. They're trying to make
So
money.
you think they're going to go the next 2 years without changing anything about the game outside of adding characters?
No, I'm saying I hope they don't do that so they have more time on the next game.
They could allocate people to work on this while they work on the other game at the same time. Other companies,
Yeah, but they could have the whole group working on the new game for even better efficiency.
or they could hire to have people work on both simultaneously, so they have one team doing one and one team doing the other.
Yeah, or they could have both teams together make an amazing game.
If you're telling me,
Like I said, just depends what you want. Just depends what
so
you
you're
want.
saying NetherRealm is the only company too stupid to work on 2 games at once, while every other company in the
No,
world
I'm
can do
saying
it.
I hope NRS works on the next game.
Well, how come
fully.
other companies don't need to do that?
Because I guess their fan bases are content with the game. I don't know. Like Street Fighter 5 players apparently think the game is the best thing since sliced bread. I guess.
No, I mean they did an overhaul to Street Fighter 5 while still working on Street Fighter 6.
Right, but I'm asking for what you want. I don't care.
So
what the
are
company's
you
gonna
telling
do.
me NetherRealm is incapable of making a good future product if they're doing
No,
something
I'm
that's
saying that
level?
I hope that they don't do this so that way the next game can be better.
Why is it not possible the next game will be better and we still get an overhaul for MK11 or some type of change to the game that makes it better?
I'm telling you what I want. My preference.
Okay, so you don't want both.
If I knew that they were making a new fighting game, then I would want them to use all their resource and every minute that they have putting it into that new game. So that way when the time comes years from now when we get that new game, it's way better than it could be if they focus that resource or split their teams and hire these new people to do this now for MK11.
Okay, I think they should be able to do both, but that's okay. Dave, what do you think?
I'm actually with him. I think I might agree with Rio.
Like, and look, I'm not trying to be biased here because I'm pretty happy with MK11.
It
Like, I have
sounds like
fun
you're
with it.
calling
So
them
to me, it's
incompetent
like
without saying incompetent. That's
no,
really
it
what
sounds
you're
like
saying.
I'm being a greedy person because unlike you, I don't. When I play the game, I don't really get mad. I've been having a lot of fun with it. So to me, to play the game for another 2 years, to me, it's not a big deal. For you, that's probably a huge deal. So I understand why you want them to use their resource on MK11, whereas I rather them just use it all in the next game.
Okay, what I'm saying is it not possible they could do both?
They can
Yes,
definitely
but
do
I
both.
hope they don't. I hope they do not do that.
Why are you hoping? You know, the next time you're gonna get another Mortal Kombat game is gonna be like
5 years.
so long from now.
Zyphox, I played some MK games for like 10
Oh, bro.
years. I
So might as well make
easily
this-
wait another 2 years.
I understand that, but you want this game to be perfect at the end of the day. Like, let's just get one let's get that overall patch. NRS, let's get it, please. That way we can have
Dude,
this.
you
and then
really
we can-
think the next overall is going to make the game perfect?
I hope so.
Did it make MK
Perfect, but I think the thing to notice about the game is, look, there are people obviously who are just. I would definitely.
You guys are putting a lot of stock into this magical overhaul that's going to come. I hope this overhaul is going to be half as good as you guys
I'll
are
be
making it
honest
to
with you.
be.
For someone who says they enjoy the game, you're not really. You're like, I hope I don't do shit for the game. Let it just go the way it is and whatever. I mean, look.
I'm
They don't
enjoying
have to
it,
do
but I
anything
hope
for
it
the game
dies.
because I
Yeah,
played a lot.
I mean-
no. I'm not. Wait. I'm not saying I hope it dies. I'm saying I hope they use their resource on the next game because for me personally, I can play this game for another 2 years, no problem.
I doubt that.
All right. Well,
Well,
we'll see 2 years from now when I'm still playing it.
Thomas's opinion. Here,
I
I'll
mean,
give you.
yeah,
Hold on. The game is to me is unsalvageable. Cannot be saved. It's dead. Okay.
I don't think they can. I don't. I mean, if they.
I don't think I'm not dumb. Anybody's competent. I think they can do it. I just think I agree with you. I think they're better off putting in their time and effort. You know.
But to go
onto
2
the next-
years without anything.
Tom, the game is what it is at this point. It's like MKX. It's not gonna please people. Just like MKX.
I
some
think a
people
lot of
If you-
people are interested.
If you want to
in the
drop
game.
down more cash to buy the MK11 DLC, more power to you. Buy it.
I think a lot of people
And I'm
are.
not saying I will support them. I will support them no matter what they throw out. But I'm just saying.
I find this hard to believe, Rio. You love the game, but you're saying you'd rather stab yourself in the
Well,
foot than pay
when I
money
say
for more DLC?
wait. When I say the word love, when did I say love?
Okay, you like the game, but not enough to buy more DLC. I mean, if it's something.
Dude, if they release a Kombat pack with Cole, you think I'm gonna buy that shit? No thanks. I'll pass.
What about the?
Which is probably gonna be the next DLC, by the way. It's gonna be Cole.
I
Cole
mean,
Young?
Because Cole is gonna sell the most. That is gonna bring the big bucks. They have the movie characters out. I'm not buying
the
Cole.
Goro
I'm sorry.
Slayer? No.
I'm not gonna get Cole combat pack with
Dude,
his
nobody
shed,
likes Cole, bro.
his
Nobody likes
backyard shed as a combat stage,
Bro.
dude. I'll pass on that.
And his
If I see Cole shed in the game as a stage, I'll
and
snap.
Cole's friendship should be he turns you into the baby that Raiden rescued, right? That no one knows what happened.
Come
I mean, like I said,
bro.
this is just
No
a
one knows
preference
what
question.
Bring
What do
back
you
Balor
want?
back. No one knows what happened.
This is just a preference question. They'll be like, what do you want? If you want MK11 content and you want more for the game, you like all that, then okay, then you can have that. But we have different opinions.
But I mean,
Let's
there are
say
people who still enjoy while they don't play
But
it
I'm
now.
okay, here's the thing. Zyphox talking company, you're talking about people. I'm talking about you. What do you want? Not what people want.
I
not what the
want
company
them.
wants.
I would like for-
What?
I would like them to complete the game, and I think it would bring a lot of people back.
Tom, you know.
I think.
yeah.
I think people.
People are gonna come back.
I think
Are you
people
kidding me?
want to see MK11.
Tom, I don't think you realize this, but people have already spent months playing these
One of
new
the
games,
biggest
like
reasons-
Street Fighter and Tekken. I don't think they're coming back.
One of the biggest reasons why people actually spend so much time griping about MK11 is because the game actually isn't trash. Far from it, and people can see that.
Or because they just don't
Which
like
is
it.
why
which is fine,
they
it's
see
their
the
opinion.
potential, and if the game ever actually did something to live up to that potential, a lot of people would come back because they want to play it. They just get
Yes,
very, very
100%.
bored. And I think if they did complete the game, did content that wasn't just...
I don't know why you keep saying complete. It's never been done before.
They haven't had 2 extra years. And keep in mind, in the process, one of its 2
But you're acting like they have 2 extra years without something else to work on. Don't they have a new game coming out soon? Like in a couple of years?
If every other game company on the planet can do it, you're literally hedging your bets here. You're saying...
Wait. Other fighting game companies make new games every 2 years? Every 2-3 years? 2 and 3 years?
Other fighting game companies can work on one game while developing another. They seem to have no problem doing it.
So wait, are you saying other fighting game companies are better than NRS?
I get what you're doing. You're talking around the fact that you don't want to just come out and say you do not have faith in NetherRealm to work on this game.
No. I'm telling you my preference. Like, here's the thing.
Yes or no, Rhea?
I don't even know how to play half the cast in MK11 yet.
Okay, I'm gonna pick
I can easily
Okay.
use the next 2 years to learn the rest of the characters. I can keep myself occupied.
Okay, well, we're not going to talk around this because you're going to give me a yes or no
Look, it was
answer.
just a question. I said,
I
what
have
do you
a
want?
question
That's
for
it.
you. Do you have faith in NetherRealm that they can finish MK11 while working on the next title?
I mean, what does finish mean?
That they can do some type of overhaul to the game to make it a more complete product while still giving us a quality game in the next product?
Yes.
Do you have
Yeah,
faith
they
in
could
it?
do that, but if that's what you want, then okay.
I'm not asking. I'm asking you. It's a yes or no question. Do you have faith in that or not?
Do I think NRS could make DLC for this game to monetize
That's
and then make
not
a new
what
game
I
too?
asked you.
Why wouldn't they be able to do
That
that?
is not what I asked you. I asked. Okay, never mind. Next, go on, Dave. He's going to keep talking.
I'm just confused. That's why I
he's
think NRS
confused,
wouldn't be
Dave.
able to
Let's
do
go. He's
that.
confused. He's doing the.
No.
That's okay.
Why do you think NRS wouldn't be able to do that?
That's all right. We're all right. You don't want to answer the question, Dave. We'll move on.
All right,
Let's
let's
move
move
on. We're not
on.
going to stay on.
All right. Well, Dave, do
not
you have
gonna
a
stay on
preference? Like,
this.
do you
We're
want
not
do you
gonna
want
stay
much
on
more DLC and resource going into MK11? Is that what you want?
I've already answered. I already answered your
We're
question.
not
I
going
think
to
the
stay on
game-
this. Let's
Yeah.
let Krem get a take
All
on
right.
this, and let's move on.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't hear your
We're not
answer.
going to stay on this.
I think the game cannot be saved. That's my opinion. And with that said,
Well, okay. Well, Tom thinks the opposite. He thinks the game could be saved and made into the best game.
maybe it can be. But let's hear Crimson. Let's change topics. We've been on this for longer than we should have. Crimson, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, what do you guys want to move on to?
No, we're gonna ask you about this topic.
What do you want to see?
Wait. We're moving on from the topic, but you want to ask him about the topic?
No, he wants to ask him what does he want to see happen. What does he want to see
Let
happen?
the man speak, for God's sake.
What does he want to see happen?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of said it earlier, but yeah, I think it just makes sense to do something for the game in the time before the next one comes out. It's not like the usual situation where at this point we'd already be pretty much into a new game. And so I think not only does it make sense for all the players and for all the people who stuck with MK11 all this time, and just for the community as a whole, right, to have something to rally around in the meantime. But I think if they can find something to put in that they can monetize, I think it makes financial sense. Because to have a product like MK11 that I think the last tally was actually over 11 million copies that were sold. It won Fighting Game of the Year like twice. There's an MK movie that just came out. You know what I mean? If we step outside of the bubble that we're in, it's actually a really hot property right now. So I think it only makes sense to do something with it in the meantime, whatever it is.
Fair enough. And the other topic that I would like us to discuss is the fact that both NRS, Warner Brothers, and Namco, they both companies don't have anything to do with WePlay anymore. And I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't read the official statement, but I don't know if they literally said 1xBet. I don't know if they literally said that in their official statement, but so I'm just quoting the other media. I'm not familiar with 1xBet. Apparently, there's some kind of gambling company. There were rumors of money laundering in Russia and other European countries.
They have, I believe, they have warrants out for their arrest in several countries. Krim would know more about that. He looked up on this.
I mean, if anybody knows, yeah, that's right. If anybody knows more, please feel free to jump in and interrupt me. I don't mind
Krim,
at
you
all.
want to get in here on this? Because Krim knows a lot about this, actually. About the 1xBet.
So I kind of saw this coming from a few weeks ago because immediately after the MK WePlay finished, and maybe I don't remember if it was during the Soul Calibur WePlay or during the Tekken, but anyhow, before their overall event finished, but after ours was done, some news came out about 1xBet. Now, for people who weren't aware, this 1xBet partner got announced literally, I think, the day before they held our tournament, right? It wasn't like they were saying for months, hey, we're partnered with these guys. The news kind of came out right before the event, so there wasn't even really time for people to react to it. And some people who've been following 1xBet from previous sports, not esports, but like real life sports, like football or soccer as we call it here, were familiar with them. And the reason that they were was that people have been putting together information saying that, number one, there were people who put their money into that platform and they could not get it back out. So like, you know, they did whatever they did their betting, it was time to cash out or whatever, and they couldn't get their money back. And the second was that there was all manner of shadiness going on with that company in general, that they had been involved with a bunch of things which were considered unsavory. And so they had sponsored a couple of pretty big time European football teams, and there was a huge blow up that happened, and basically they were outcast from the sport. And they ended up in esports. And so when that news came out, I think they were probably thinking, hey, well, you know, it hasn't made the big publications or whatever. Some people are talking about it, but maybe it's not really that big. Maybe we can just kind of go past it. And so there was really not much of a statement that was made. And it was on Twitter. A couple people made videos about it, and that was it. Until the last few weeks, it started to make the bigger, you know, like YouTube and esports news, right? It made the Score. It made a couple other news sites and stuff like that. And it got to a point where it can no longer be ignored. And at that time, ESL, who was also partnered with 1xBet, they launched an internal investigation. They said, look, we're committed to making sure that this is legit, and we're going to check them out and see what's going on. So I'm thinking that ESL will likely end up dropping them as well. And it just got to the point where it couldn't be ignored. Obviously, a conversation happened behind the scenes because for both companies to simultaneously pull all three games out at the same time, right, that's major. I mean, that almost never happens. But clearly, they talked behind the scenes and said, look, either you guys get rid of this sponsor or we get rid of you. We take our games out. And, you know, if that's where the money is coming from and they weren't willing to do it, then the cost that they pay is they lost all three fighting games. And WePlay as a fighting game entity, as of this moment, no longer exists, which is pretty pretty heavy news.
Well, yeah, thank you for all the pieces of information. Tom, do you think this says anything like overall about the fighting game community and the sponsors, or do you think this is just irrelevant and doesn't matter?
This is, to me, it's a situation where. So the problem is with fighting games. Look, we see League of Legends pack out the Staples Center, right? And so many sponsors get into fighting games because they think, yeah, I mean, this is on tap, make some money. And then they actually try to make revenue off the views of fighting games by selling advertising based on view times or whatever. And fighting games don't rate as well. You're not going to fill a stadium like the Staples Center for a game like MK11 or whatever it is. It's not even about a Mortal Kombat, right? So it's not about that. It doesn't really matter. Fighting games, well, MK especially is not as worldwide as some other fighting games. As it's not, I mean, everyone plays it or knows about it, but it's not played as internationally as some of the other games. It's more so rooted in America. But in general, fighting games, regardless, they don't rate as well as other things. So like you could do like League of Legends or something like that, and the airtime would be good enough to where if you're someone trying to hold a league or something like that, or do something, you can actually make some money. And the sponsors that you have sponsoring the event can actually turn a profit as well. So, it all works out. For fighting games, it's kind of like, where are you going to go? If NetherRealm or Warner Brothers is not providing you money, you obviously have to go elsewhere. And what they chose to do is go to 1xBet for their sponsor. The problem is that I'm pretty sure that this is something that probably Warner Brothers, hey, you can't deal with 1xBet anymore. I don't think this was, like an overnight decision. I think they probably contacted WePlay. A lot of people were kind of lashing out at Warner Brothers on Twitter and NetherRealm um, for this. But I do think they tried to contact those guys and tried to come to terms like, hey, is there any way you can do this without using 1xBet? And I think if it was an issue where they just couldn't find the funding without using it.
Well,
in general,
just to clarify, this is not a fighting game thing at all. This is
it's not a fighting. It's not about fighting. It's about the fact that it's because they couldn't find the funding outside of using 1xBet, and 1xBet was the issue. If they had funding from somewhere not 1xBet, this wouldn't even be a problem. They wouldn't even be like if they were to tell Warner Brothers or Namco Bandai, yeah, you know what, we stopped dealing with 1xBet. We're dealing with over this guy over here, and they're providing us funding, it would be okay. Where it does become a fighting game issue is the fact that you need to go to stuff like that. Normally, you'd be able to get funding for this just on airtime or whatever, whether it be a network, a stream, etc. But fighting games don't do that. They're not great on stream. You look at a fighting game, I mean, the Diablo 2 beta, the technical alpha came out, in which very few people got it. If you combined probably the entire year of Mortal Kombat 11 views, it wouldn't equal as much as that one weekend of a beta of a game that came out 20 years ago and was being remastered. And it's just how fighting games are. It's not about MK, it's not about Street Fighter, it's not about Tekken. It's about fighting games in general. They don't do as well on Twitch as other games. They don't do as well on network as other games. They don't do as well live as other games. Fighting games are, unfortunately, the basement of any game. Fighting game is the lowest. They are the mailroom of gaming, unfortunately. They just don't have and to me, that's why you need to go to something like 1xBet or get Warner Brothers to give you funding, because you can't reliably make funding off airtime or stream time of the game without some type of sponsor, but then that sponsor doesn't make their money back. So they're like, never again. So you can't repeat it. It's pro leagues have gone through this in the past. They just can't get funding or keep things going for fighting games. They don't self generate, which is why they're going to someone like 1xBet, who apparently they don't really give a shit one way or the other. They're making their money somehow, however they do it, and they're able to do it. So it's WePlay can go to them, and regardless of what happens, they can always go back to them and get money. The problem is that, unfortunately, that 1xBet is not on the up and up, so to speak.
Well, I think that
what.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish the point that I was making.
Yeah.
This is actually not a fighting game thing. Esports in general, by and large, do not make money. There are a couple of exceptions, and I'll explain why. But like, for example, like League of Legends doesn't run the LCS because it makes them money. They run it because their game makes them money, and it's a great look for the game. But
True.
like the
But their
money
game makes
put,
them a lot more money than fighting games make.
well, yeah, I mean, but either way, right? Like most of these companies are losing money to put these leagues on, right? Almost all of them, with the exception of a couple. There are like two exceptions. One is Dota 2, because they figured out how to sell this digital like compendium booklet and in-game package, which is one of the most genius moves that's been pulled in esports to date. And that took the international tournament from being something which would have lost them money but would have been cool to something where they could pull in $20 million crowdfunded basically for a prize pool, right? And the other is CSGO, and that's not because people are paying to watch the game, but it's because of sticker sales and stuff like that, which is kind of related to esports, but isn't directly people paying to watch. No one, absolutely no one, makes money off of airtime or views or anything like that. All that stuff is nice, but for any title, not just fighting games, most esports are losing money rather than making money, and that's one of the bigger problems that the industry is trying to solve.
But the difference is those games. For example, give me the numbers. How many titles has Mortal Kombat 11 sold? 8 million, right?
I think 11
Probably
million.
more.
11 million. In how long? 2 years? World of Warcraft sold 25 million on its first day. World of Warcraft, the new expansion, sold more than the entire life of MK11 and Injustice 2, and probably MKX combined. If you combined probably all the NRS games collectively, that game sold more in one day than those games collectively have sold through their entire life.
Hold on a minute. The issue, I don't think, are the sales. Look.
No, my point is what Krim was saying, that these companies, other companies.
I know, but I understand your point, but I think it's important to emphasize that the fighting games actually sell pretty damn well. Like MK11 has sold.
I understand
well.
they sell. It's not.
Tekken
They sell well.
actually, Tekken 7 sales actually keep going up, which is
Dave,
incredible.
it's not about the game. Fighting games to sell well for a fighting game. I mean,
no, for any type of game they sell well.
Any type of game, Dave. If I'm going to name a couple of games.
Let me just make this point because I think this is important to Rio enlightened me when he talked about Dota, because when you turn on the game, you get everybody who's streaming, all the tournaments that are going on. That's on the companies. They haven't adapted. They're 20, 30 years behind. Like the model, again, I don't understand it because I don't play those games, and I'm sorry I'm ignorant about this, but he lectured me about this. I know that a model is out there. It's somewhere out there. Somebody needs to emulate it.
They sell more. A game like Dota during content
makes
more money.
Unfortunately, if you want fighting games to be like that, sadly, you're going to have to make them mainstream. You know what that happens when a game becomes mainstream, right? You're going to have to dumb it down and make it a lot easier, so that way even your grandma could play the game.
Exactly, fighting games.
So if you want these games to be
if
you want these games to be mainstream, then developers need to stop making fighting games so hard. They need to make them easier and easier. That way, anybody can just come in, pick up, play, and completely understand.
Wait,
That's a
fallacy. That's a fallacy.
No, because Dota right now, Dota right now has so many game modes. If you were to download Dota, Dave, if you were to download Dota 2 right now and never played it before, you have to play a mode called New Player Mode, where the game is so dumbed down, you would be able to understand it in 5 minutes of playing. Does any fighting game have something like that? No. So how can you get your friends that don't play fighting games into fighting games?
So you're saying
not even
that's why these games
like
sell so much more and they make more money, because they have done this to make it more mainstream, so they can bring in more money. And
they know how to just pull anybody in and have them understand. When you turn on a fighting game, you're like, where do I go?
Whoa.
Okay, training mode. What do I do?
First of all,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to refute that point. It's not about making something easy. Remember how we talked about a few episodes ago, the flow chart? Or what makes people interested
Yeah, but
in things?
Zyphox, when I say that, you know what I mean. When you turn on Dota, there's so many easy modes that you would have to go through as a new player. It just kind of... It kicks you through.
I understand. I completely understand that, right? But it would still take you months to get that game down, even a little bit. I've been through that with you in 2014, literally 7 years ago.
Yeah, but okay, when you played back then, there wasn't new player mode and all this stuff. Dota's leveled up like crazy since then. They have all these new modes now that really walk you through.
I understand that. What I'm about to say is this, right? At the end of the day, it's not about getting new players to play a game. It's about retaining them and getting them to play a lot. Okay?
And
This
then
is what fighting games do not
building
do.
on that. Exactly. Because if we could have retained those 8 million and then build a few million more, it would be growing, as opposed to we lose so much more, we don't retain them, and then eventually it caps out. Whereas these other games, they continuously sell and make more money and make more money, and they have expansions and
Wait,
DLC.
Let me
they-
bring something. Let me
Wait,
finish my
wait,
point real
wait.
quick.
Let me just clarify real quick because I think something's getting twisted here. Like, part of the reason that these games are so popular is that you don't have to buy them. You don't have to buy Dota 2.
It's
You
free
don't
to
have
get
to buy
in.
League of
Yeah,
Legends.
like
So
League
what
of
they
Legends
do
free to
is
get into. Yeah,
I was literally
Yeah.
going to say that.
Dota is free. Yeah,
they get a ton of people to play them, and then once they're like, "Hey, this is free," and I kind of am liking this, then they sell them cosmetics, and that's where.
Path of Exile's free with microtransactions. Yeah,
Dota also has constant free updates like every other month. Like it's
Yeah,
nonstop
well,
updating and characters and
to get back to what I was saying, right? I was literally going to go down that line. I was like,
I'm saying it's
guys, wait.
I'm saying it's the fighting game model that holds it back,
Yeah,
not the fighting
exactly.
game. Yeah, let me
No,
clarify.
of course.
It's not the fight. Look, I've been through this. I remember I was with Championship Gaming Series. There were the original MLG didn't. MLG's first stint with fighting games didn't work out that well, and to the point that as big as MLG was, people weren't even getting paid for a long time with the fighting games, not within Halo or stuff like that. It was always the fighting games. Tekken 5, Soul Calibur 3, I believe it was, etc. And then before MLG made its comeback with MK, Soul Calibur, what was it, 5, etc. Within fighting games, it never went anywhere, but fighting games had kind of disappeared for a while and came back with fighters. There was Championship Gaming Series, and it was a pro league. They had DOA 4 as that was the main game, was DOA 4. But just in general, I remember them. They would have these airplane hangars in California. They were packed with people. But from one year to the next, people were making less money. So when people make less money, it's not a sign of growth, right? You don't make less money for that. And I asked about this, and they were like, "Oh, what happens is they were paying people $60 a head to sit in the stadium." Off the bat, that's a doomed business model. Regardless, from one pro league to the next, the way they have worked, the fighting game model has never worked. For some reason, whether it's someone holding an event or the company that makes the title, people have done not the fighting game, but the fighting game model is done wrong as far as how they're going to do like events and bring in a bit more people.
Yeah, I agree.
all right.
But CJ,
I
I have
never
a
got
question
to
for
finish
you
my
guys.
point real quick.
Go ahead.
yeah, let Zyphox finish.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say is that it's this competition between getting every player's attention. People that don't normally play fighting games, whenever they do pick one up, they're never able to retain because of the fact that it's a difficult thing, and they're lacking in confidence in it, in their ability to do so. I feel like for some reason these Dota and League of Legends games, because they're free entry, like you guys said before, they're able to get you almost get like a trial. You'd be able to try and play something, and then just the more people that can do that, the more people you're gonna end up having. These people end up buying MK11 on sale, on like your PSN sales, and they end up playing a little bit with their friends, and they never touch it again. Like that's what people do. People don't play this game religiously, you know, and that's what we got to focus on. You guys already made all my points that I wanted to make, but
By the way, some companies are really smart at marketing. Zyphox, you want to know why? Because I know you haven't played Dota in a while, right?
I mean, I've seen it, but
Yeah, but you've been off the game for like months, right? Because this is the funny thing. Okay, so you guys know RE8 coming out, right? That new vampire chick with the big boobs, big butt that like everybody's been talking about on the internet. Like
yeah, Lady
all these people that never know. Yeah, all these people that never knew about Resident Evil now are gonna get the game because of like this character that has everybody's interest. Guess what Dota did because of that? Their newest character, they released a hero last month called Dawnbreaker, and it's a character with big boobs, big butts, and everybody in Dota's talking about it. They're like, oh my god, this character's so sick, so hot. Like, it's insane how companies are just smart. I'm not making this up, dude. So they have a character kind of equivalent to that RE8 character right now that's out, catching attention. Dude, if you played the Dota right now, Zyphox, everybody's just talking about this new character that they have in the game.
Yeah,
It's
but
hilarious.
I wanted to say some things going forward for them to fix. I've already said in past long ago podcasts about what they really need to do in order to fix this problem. Way back when they did the skins for to fund, remember? That was directly from the compendium of Dota 2, which I suggested, by the way. And going forward, what they can do now, right, is why does this game not have like a battle pass or something? Every single game has a battle pass, and it works. Why does it work? Because for a little $10. Now I wouldn't suggest doing a battle pass on a paid game, but if you know, they got to do something to get on par with all these other games.
Okay, I have a question for you guys, because this may come very soon. Are you guys going to be getting that new fighting game that League of Legends is making? They're making a fighting game, which is probably going to be free to play.
Right, and yes, we're all going to get it.
Okay, because what they're going to do with this fighting game, they're probably going to do all their marketing stuff for mobile. The people that made League of Legends.
Who's making?
The people that do these...
I understand. What are
Right.
the
Riot.
the experiences before that?
They don't make fighting games. They play League of
Okay.
Legends.
Well, they may make
But they're
something
making
like
a fighting game.
They may make
Well, my
one-
point is this. My point is this. They're gonna make this fighting game. If it becomes massive and popular, free to play, they do all this stuff. If this explodes, do you think other
Well,
fighting game
time
companies
out,
are gonna look
time
at that and be
out.
like, "Shit,
time out.
we need to look at that. We need to maybe do battle pass. We need to maybe do monthly updates nonstop, and maybe they need to change everything around." Do you think that this game, when it releases, is gonna have an impact
It's
on
gonna
fighting
have
games?
no
When you say
impact.
fighting game, they could be making a fighting game like Brawlhalla for all we know. They may not be
I know,
making it.
I know.
as-
No, there's
But
leaked footage out there.
In order to conquer the giants of the fighting game industry, like Capcom and NRS and Namco,
The giants of the fighting game is Super Smash Brothers.
Well,
It's the biggest
and they
fighting
make
game right
and
now.
they may try to copy the Smash Brothers.
yeah, exactly. And they made
Well, they would be smart because that's the most popular and biggest fighting game out right now.
Okay,
They would be
well,
smart to do that.
but if they make it like Smash, that's not a traditional fighting game, is what I mean to say. They may not make it like that.
Okay, but it's still a fighting game.
Okay.
Well, look,
Exactly.
I think it's important to point out that this stuff is not really that easy to do. All right, like look at some of the biggest games right now. The funniest thing about a lot of these games we're talking about is that the companies who made the games that these games came from could not figure it out. And the one thing that allowed us to get here that we haven't had in fighting games is community content, right? Like Dota started as a Warcraft 3 mod. It wasn't a company that figured out, hey, like let's do this because people like it. It was some people being like, hey, we can make our own content. We can do this and create this.
Yeah, it literally was a mod. It was a mod
Right.
that turned into a real game because it became so popular.
And League of Legends came from that, and then Valve was basically like, "Hey, well, that's popular. Like,
Yeah.
we can do that too." And they hired the guy who was one of the most instrumental.
Who made the
people.
mods, yeah.
Yeah, and Counter Strike.
Ice Rug.
Yeah, Counter Strike similarly was not invented by Valve. They just found out that it was popular, and they're like, "Hey, we can buy this." So that's one thing that we've been missing is there hasn't been a lot of opportunity to create community content. Like, imagine what if people could rebalance MK11 themselves, right?
Dude, this is my point. So I had this idea before. I haven't gotten to make a video about this, but what a cool idea was to make a sandbox mode for NRS games. Like, let's say the next NRS game has a sandbox mode where you get to actually change the game, tweak it, give characters this, see how Jackie would be without Leap, see how Citron would be without what. Like, you get to customize your game, nerf, buff, whatever you want, and then you're able to play with your friends how you want the game. Wouldn't that be really cool?
Imagine if you can
Someone can make a custom game mode to make the perfect version of MK11 that a lot of people would love, and then it will become mainstream, like things like that.
And you could customize the characters too. Imagine that.
Exactly.
Like,
See,
I love
this is
when
the
they
stuff.
have
Other games have all these amazing modes, being able to customize this and that, but fighting games don't have that. This is
NRS
what they're
would
missing.
never allow that to happen because then they couldn't ban half the moves.
And I think a lot.
But anyway, the point is, this is the future of where games need to be. If you want games to be bigger and huge, you need to let people customize the games. You need to open up mods.
Well,
You need to
fighting
let
games are
people-
way behind in the way other games do things compared to a fighting game. They're in the Stone Ages when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, Riot releasing this new fighting game, and things are going to start picking up. And who knows what's going to happen 20 years from now with fighting games?
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was just gonna say, obviously, if anybody had the answer, then that person, would have done it already. I don't think anybody in the call, anybody in the comments, anybody.
Oh, I was gonna answer your question, Dave. You asked if they had any prior experience with fighting games.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is the thing about Riot. I give them full confidence because they made Valorant, and I'm pretty sure they got people that also developed. They added people onto their team that have developed games before. So they made Valorant, which is really close to CS:GO in terms of gameplay, and then they added like hero abilities.
Dude, you know what's crazy? Thinking about all this stuff, wouldn't it be wild if like 30 years from now, the biggest fighting games aren't even games like Mortal Kombat Street Fighter anymore? It's all these new companies like League of Legends. Like, how, dude, that may happen. It's kind of scary.
Because that's the way of the world.
History.
That's just how it works, though.
Except it doesn't, because history just says otherwise. I mean, when I was in the arcade, and Tom knows.
Dog, look, stop. Everybody was making fun of Smash Brothers back then, saying this shit and that. Now it's the biggest fighting game out there. I mean, it happened.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, but let's go back even further to Smash Brothers. I mean, Tom could speak about this better than I ever could, but what were the people playing in the arcade? Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat. Guess what? Those games are still around. Those are the games, aside from Smash, they still make...
Right, but like Tom mentioned earlier, fighting games are very small and niche genre of games.
Yeah.
Once League of Legends, all these companies start touching them and making their versions, like I said, I would be not shocked if 20 years from now, games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, with all these new companies making these new fighting games, if this game explodes, it would not shock me. I would be like, wow, that's crazy that it happened. I wish NRS could have done it first.
The idea of these fighting games, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, they were designed as competitive fighting games, and they were around before Smash. Smash came out as a party game, and it's now taken more seriously than these serious fighting games. So, I mean, the fact that they were around first doesn't matter. They've been
Smash is so big that Nintendo is actively trying to kill Melee.
Yeah.
It's so big that Nintendo's trying to kill their own game, and it's still not strong enough.
Well, I think
they're still not strong enough to do it.
I think it's important to point out that in this case, it's a little bit different than the normal situation of a company branching out, and that is because in this case, it's not just like Riot said, all right, we're going to use our devs and we're going to do a fighting game. What happened was they actually acquired some of the biggest names in the FGC to do this. It was, you guys know the canons, right? Like, they're basically responsible for this whole GGPO wave and everything like that with the rollback that's happening now, all right? That was their work that they brought into the community, which has now sort of set the tone for what online games are for fighting games today. So they had a company with Seth Killian, I believe, and they were working on a game named Rising Thunder, and it was basically supposed to be like kind of what Rio and Zyphox are talking about. Like, it's supposed to be a fighting game where there's almost no barrier to entry, right? There's not a lot of execution barrier. There's not a lot of like learn the inputs in terms of frames and stuff like this, but it was basically like anyone could
one button uppercuts.
Yeah, that game had really bad netcode too.
Yeah, and so they were working on that game, and then they just hired the whole company. I'm pretty sure they just acquired the entire like Radiant Entertainment team and brought them into League. So brought them into Riot. So that's why I say in this case, it's a little different, Like, yes, they are branching out, but they're doing it with people who know the industry pretty well. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens, but
yeah, it's gonna be crazy when this game hits and how much it explodes, because League of Legends has so many players.
And they have so much.
Imagine one of these fighting game tournaments with like hundreds of thousands of people there, just unreal numbers that we've never seen before for fighting games.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between the fighting game community and this other League of Legends community. I don't know if the fighting community is even going to accept the game, and if they do, when. Like, remember, Smash for a long, long time was known as this not traditional fighting game. Nobody outside of Smash Bros. Was ever going to play it. I mean, let's not pretend that never actually happened. Like, it's not like it happened overnight.
Yeah, and those people were morons.
Well,
how the hell could you say something isn't real because you're not good at it and don't know how to play it? Like, I see people say all the time, Smash isn't real, game doesn't have life bars. Meanwhile, if you see them try to play it, they don't know how to play footsies or neutral. They get completely destroyed and they can't even land a hit. It's embarrassing.
I think that people are entitled to their opinions. I still know a lot of players who don't consider it a traditional fighting game. That's okay. That doesn't mean that the game can play like a fighting game. That doesn't mean that the game can sell well. I'm a traditional guy. I like my Street Fighter and Tekken and my MK, and that's what I'm going to stick by. If the game doesn't play according to the rules that I'm used to, I'm not going to play it. Simple as that. If people,
Damn, so you want to just keep playing the same formula over and over?
not the same.
You don't like to
formula,
try
Say
out
you're a
new
boomer
fighting
and
games?
go.
we talked about competence. Until those people, these new fighting those can prove that they're competent, can make a competent fighting game. To me, they're not competent because they have to prove themselves.
Okay, well, hopefully the new Marvel DC game plays like these current fighting games and doesn't play too different then.
No, I'm open with the idea. Again, if you listen to my initial argument, I didn't say I want this Marvel's DC game to play anything like Injustice. I don't want it to play anything like Tekken. I don't want to play anything like.
Yeah, like Tekken or Street Fighter MK, you know, like
Yeah.
a traditional fighting game, whatever that means.
I wanted to play. Well, actually, everybody plays those games knows what I mean, except apparently you. But the point is this: I do want to try something different, but at the same time,
What does traditional fighting game mean?
you have light bars. The game has some kind of footsie game. The game revolves around hit confirms.
Smash is heavy footsie based, like it's insanely neutral and footsie
I
based.
never said anything about Smash. Again, I'm just talking about the fighting games that I grew up with. I think I'm entitled to talk.
Okay, so traditional fighting game has to have life bars and footsies.
That's a huge part of it. Yeah, it's part of it, not necessarily like everything. And I'm not disparaging people who play Smash. If they want to play it, that's good for them. I personally don't play the game. I really don't care about it. And I never watch it. The games that I usually watch are MK, Street Fighter, and Tekken. That's what I grew up with, and many other people did as well. And that's what they want to play. I think that it's their prerogative to do so.
Well, in my opinion, hopefully MK can in the future become games like Smash and stuff and play like that because the games would explode. They'd become so big. And I would love to see MK games. I would love to see MK games be on top.
I don't think any of us do, except for you.
I don't want it to play like Smash.
Well, I think two things are true. I think one is it takes time to figure this stuff out. I mean, a lot of people might not remember the Championship Gaming series that Tom mentioned actually was not a fighting game league. It was a
No,
Counter-Strike.
it wasn't. But they chose it was CS, but they chose for some reason to make DOA the game they marketed the league around, not Counter-Strike. And they did a terrible thing by they took the world's most popular Counter-Strike teams and they held a draft and split them up. So like complexity wasn't really all of complexity, and 3D and Y wasn't really, you know what I mean? So like it was kind of weird when they did that.
The main draw of CGS was Counter-Strike, and they were really the first truly franchised esports league, right? Where it was no
where they
just...
did the CPL, so it was a big deal. But CGS actually destroyed North American Counter-Strike by doing that. They destroyed it. They bought all the teams, then they split the teams up, and then the league went out. They drained the league dry, and it went under, and that was the end of competitive Counter-Strike in North America for a very long time.
And simultaneously, the Cyber Athlete Amateur League and Cyber Athlete Professional League, which was like the biggest like league for everyone to play in, and the biggest pro Counter-Strike league, ran into some trouble with their owner and folded completely. So one of the most popular games in the world of all time, esports completely died. And that just tells you that this stuff is not easy. Figuring out how to make money, figuring out how to
out of games is not easy.
Yeah, like out of an esports scene. So it takes time. But the second thing that's true is you can only figure it out if you're experimenting, right? And again, it wouldn't have happened for a lot of these other companies if they didn't have people making mods and stuff like that. Even I'm sure like hero shooters and stuff, this whole Overwatch craze, I could guarantee you that probably first came from people making mods. Probably all the way as far back as like Quake and the original Team Fortress, which again wasn't even the company making that game, right? Team Fortress started as some stuff that people did on their own for Half-Life, and then it turned into a game that Valve made and stuff like that. So I think it just shows the importance of having some kind of environment where people can kind of experiment and find new things.
And I think that also helps because sometimes, like we see now with MK11, for example, and other fighting games, developers are more concerned with limiting what players can do based on, well, you know, people are going to complain about this, that, or the other. Fan mods allow you to kind of do this kind of stuff and give you back a lot of the freedom that the developer may take, and the game could take off that way as well. Almost every game out there has some form of fan modding, right? World of Warcraft, for example. My God, I don't know what that game would be without mods. So many games have ways to do that type of thing, except for the mainstream fighters, ironically. So
And
that is something to look into.
it's really true. And part of the issue has been that in this whole esports landscape, we're one of the only truly major titles that is console first before
Yeah.
everything.
That's a great point.
Almost
And that's
all
the
these.
problem with it, though. That's
Yeah.
why
Yeah,
we can't.
everything else is 100 times better on PC.
Well,
Yeah.
that might, that might be literally, there's probably a correlation between that, because guess what? You're not modding your fucking game if it's on the PS5.
On the PS5,
Right,
yep.
Yeah.
exactly.
And that's
You're
the
not
problem.
modding it, yeah, and you might not be modding any of that stuff. I mean, for God's sake, remember GameShark didn't let you use that anymore, and that was kind of like pretty much a modding device. You love to cheat, you love to give yourself extra stuff, whatever. Even they got rid of.
Well, modding is very sketchy because, like I said, a lot of times people that mod games can make a better product than the actual developers, and they can put out really cool things. Like, for example, when my short time I was playing Tekken 7 on PC, I had these cool costumes for Negan. They were modded costumes. Everybody would go like, "Yo, where'd you get that sick costume?" This and that. I'm like, "Well, it's a mod," and they were kind of upset. They're like, "Damn, why does Namco have skins like that in the store to buy for Negan?" And just how it is, man. Like when games have mods, you get to see a lot of cool things that you would normally never see if the game didn't have them.
Yeah, actually, Deoxys, I think, a while back posted a video from a mod for MK11 for PC.
Yeah, it was the mod that it lessens the gravity, gives everybody crazy combos.
Exactly. Not only did they put
Yeah.
Sector and Cyrex in, but yeah.
But see, that's what I mean. If you allow mods in these new fighting games, do you really think that there's not going to be these passionate players out there that make these amazing mods that make, I'm sorry to say this, better games than the actual developers do? Like, would that not cause some kind of conflict? Would that not cause some kind of drama? And then people are going to ask for, why is this thing in the mod, not in the real game?
For
What
MK11,
can developers do with this mod?
I feel like it causes drama because for them, they're like, we made a game of basically nothing because you guys said you didn't want anything in the game. You just wanted the basics, right? Strike and throw. And then you make these crazy fan mods and throw it in our face like, why couldn't you do this? Right? They're like, are you serious right now? So I think I do agree with fan modding for sure, but I also agree that the developer has also got to realize, look, I mean, people are going to hate whatever, but people are never going to like less options and less tools. I mean,
yeah, honestly,
I'm sorry,
look,
man.
we have to be honest here. Games are better with mods. Every game out there, I don't care what game you play, there's mods that will make it better.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
of
guys
course.
remember all the drama in the Smash community, right? The tension between them and Nintendo, where they were modding. Was it Brawl?
Dude, yeah,
Project
they had
M.
Project
Yeah.
M. Yeah. They modded Brawl to be like an amazing fighting game. Do you know how garbage Brawl was, right? Compared to Melee. So this team actually modded Brawl to be a game like just as good as Smash Melee, which was like insane with all those new character stages. And Nintendo had to basically shut that shit down. They were like, you guys can't do this. You guys are making people play this mod instead of buying our new products. That needs to stop right now. And then they pretty much killed the entire mod. Like it's done. It's no longer a thing.
Yeah.
I think the problem is we're digging into territory that almost nobody understands. Like,
Look, be honest. If Mortal Kombat 11 right now had a modding thing, we would all be playing modded versions of the game. Tom would be playing the modded version where he has Ice Clone. Dave would be playing his modded version where he has insane
I wouldn't play
projectiles.
Ice Clone.
We would all be playing modded versions and having our own fun and doing our own thing.
not to disrespect you, I think you're immensely simplifying things, because the version of my modded game would probably look a lot different than yours, or even
That's my point. We would all have our own versions of mods that we like. That's how mods
And
work.
what game is mainstream? I mean, what game do you
Well,
have
no. Well, the
on?
thing is this: we all decide. Like, maybe one weekend I'll play Dave's modded version, then one weekend he'll play.
Tournaments
we just
can't
take
work
turns.
that way, man. I'm sorry, man. Tournaments can't work that way where you have 10 tournaments.
No
a week.
shit, but it wouldn't be about tournaments. It'd be just having fun with your game the way you want.
Okay, well, that's an option for sure. But if for tournaments, there needs to be some standard.
yeah.
But,
Yeah, well, I mean, for the tournament, you can play how the developers have it. You can play MK11 tournament.
Rio, you
but
know,
fan mods also give casuals another option to enjoy
Yeah,
the
what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what game it is. Mods should be a thing because mods just make them better.
I agree. You can have a mainstream version for tournaments, but modding allows casuals to kind of enjoy the game
The
their
game how they
way.
want.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
100%. I
Well,
agree.
and it's possible that you can get some additional testing out of it, right? Like,
Mhm.
if people can tweet, part of the situation I think at NRS is that it's a small team, which is cool for the team because it's like a family, you know. But it means people have to wear a lot of hats because you don't have a ton of people to do one thing. Like, how many people are truly responsible for balancing an NRS title, right? It's like a couple of people. It's like Paulo and maybe one or two other people. You know what I mean? So if you also have to design the game, you or design the next game, you don't get a lot of time to just only focus on balance and stuff like that. Whereas if you have people who can tweak things on their own, right? Even if they can only just play that version with themselves and their friends, you instead of saying, "Hey, what if they did this? Hey, what if they did that?" You can actually try it out and screw around.
Yeah,
with
and
it.
then live reality in it, you know, mess around with it.
Right, and then you can see if it works or if it has crazy side effects and does other things, you know. But it's also another way to get additional sort of testing for different approaches in your game.
Well, again, it's a complicated topic because if the opportunity was there, I'm sure somebody would have figured this out stuff already, even made a lot of money, or could, or attracted a lot of people, etc., etc. But
Dave, like Tom said earlier, fighting games are very small. They're very
well,
niche.
I know they are.
We don't have the numbers like other people do in these other games. If we had like 1,000 talented modders like the Smash community does, maybe you would see some things like that.
Well, maybe, I don't know. I think we're digging into territory that I was going to make this initial argument that I don't think anybody understands just yet, because maybe fighting games are just backward. Fighting game companies.
Yeah, and this is why for the next NRS game, I hope NRS gives us a sandbox mode so we could just change the game, mess around with it. I want to give RoboCop 14 overhead. I'll mess around with that and see how good it is. And just do whatever you want to be better.
Well, if nobody plays you in that game, it doesn't matter. Okay,
sure, but that's why you just play with your friends just to mess around. You know what I mean?
Might not want to play with me. You think Master D's gonna play?
Okay, then if they don't want to play with the 4-2 RoboCop, then I'll play their version. Just you know what I mean, like what I'm saying.
I actually don't know what you mean.
Dave, I think the part of the reason that's true is because there aren't a lot of American fighting game developers, and traditionally there's always kind of been that tension between the East and the West, where it's more not always acceptable. There's still some companies that shut things down, but in general, companies embracing modding has mostly been a thing like over here and in Europe, and not as much over there. And so I think since most of the popular franchises are over there, I think that's part of why we haven't seen that kind of thing. That and the console thing. And who knows? Maybe that'll change, I mean, maybe.
Yeah, like for example, if someone hit me up from our friend list and was like, "Yo, play my modded Molina in MK11," and I'm like, "What kind of changes you do?" And he's like, "I made ball roll low and 4-4 head. I play to see how it is. Like why not? Just for shits and giggles."
You'd play MK.
It'd be fun to experiment.
I see you doing that, dudes.
Yeah, but that's their version of Molina. I'll give it a try. Why not? Like I'll mess around with it, see how good it makes or whatever.
Again, I would assure you nobody would want to play me. I wouldn't want to play.
And if they had a version of modded MK11 where you press down 2 and your anti cannot miss, it's like so easy a baby could do it. I would try it out too. Why not?
Again, just to give you an example,
the whole point of mods is to try things and have fun and see what is fun and what is not. That's literally the whole point.
You mean like you played the Outbreak version that was modded? You literally quit it 15 minutes into the game? Like, come on, dude. Like, this is.
What? You mean Terror mod, the mod that we've been playing for almost 2 years?
What about the mod
we played over the regular game?
What about the mod that the other guy made? That you were literally laughing for an hour with me? Come on, dude.
What other guy? What are you talking about?
Well, I even forget his name. Fluffy? What about? Did you play his mod? Did you thought that was good?
I'm confused as to what you're saying.
Fluffy, the guy who made his own mod version of Outbreak, Resident Evil Outbreak. Did you play that version too? Did you like that version?
No, I played Terror over that.
I know, why?
Wait, I'm confused. Are you saying that mods shouldn't be a thing because there's going to be one version you won't like that someone's going to make? Is that what you're saying?
There has to be a standard.
Okay, so what is your point then?
There has to be a standard.
Dave, you're not understanding. I'm saying if mods were a thing, you could play with your friends. If your friends do mods that you don't like, then Dave, you could tell them, sorry, I don't want to play your mods.
I know.
But for a lot of people, this will get people playing. Remember, you have to think you can't only think for yourself. Be open-minded here for everybody, not just you.
I am, and I'm saying...
You don't like mods, you think they're stupid, then don't play them. But they should be a thing so that other people can enjoy them.
No, people can enjoy privately. They can give themselves a.
Yeah, and that was my point. So what are you talking about then? What is your point?
My point is that it's going to be very difficult to agree on a certain version of the game.
There's no agreeing. You have a friend. They tell you something. If you want to try it, you try it. If you don't, you don't. What do you mean?
Not for tournaments. He's saying you can have the main version of the game for tournaments, but he's like, what about for people who don't care about tournaments?
Like, you can't do shits and giggles funds with your friend casual sometimes and try out their versions.
People go like, give this some unblockable jabs, unblockable whatever. That's fine.
Okay, if you don't want to try that, tell me you don't want to try it. But people will play stuff like that.
It's kind of like the evolution of the idea that I thought was horrible, where Rio's like 10 different game modes, ban this, ban that. What's better is not set in stone game modes. What's better is mods.
You're forced to play. Everybody's forced to play.
Mods that now you have the tournament version of the game, but hey, I don't care about tournaments. I just want to play with my friends. You can now mod the game to a version that you and your friends enjoy. So sure, you want to play in tournaments, you can do that.
Yeah, imagine playing a modded version of MK11 with jumping disabled. Some people would have fun with that. Why not give it a try?
Yeah, I think for other people who may not care about the tournaments and trying to win these tournaments, they want to play with their friends and have fun, being able to mod the game one way or the other would be a good idea.
And here's the second thing that I think would be really great for the community is, for the first time ever, a lot of people would have to figure out that the changes they want actually have a ton of other effects that they did not consider.
Yup, and they're actually shit.
Yeah, like
they're actually garbage.
All these people are really like, yeah, just do this, just make this play.
Bro, make Shao Kahn's shoulder safe on block. Right. Oh, these people would not understand how dumb that would be to fight.
For the first time, people would have to see that it's actually not.
But see, that would be fun. It would be interesting to be like, okay, let's see how fun this is. And you know what? People can even run their own for fun online tournaments with their modded versions. Just see what happens.
And this
would be good. There's nothing bad about this.
These are the things that often give games a life after death. Like.
Dog, I would play a modded version that has the pre-patch characters to be how they are against these new characters. Like, if I could play pre-patch Aaron again against new such on shit, that would be fun as hell. Sign me up. Why not?
And, in the case of a game like, say, like StarCraft, like Brood War and stuff like that, this is why the game has so much life. Is because people can make their own game types, and so it's like your game never really
There's like
dies.
infinite content and stuff through mods and such. It's like infinite content.
I'm not denying that. I think you're 100% right. My only concern was about the tournament standard, right? That's my only concern. I agree with you. I want to play, the characters. I want to play a Premier Zone noob that I was lied to for like 6 months, right? I don't want to live a lie.
Yeah, and I'm sure someone could mod his projectiles have 0 recovery, and you could have fun with that.
Anyway, I think we're almost an hour, if more than a half in, and I do want to wrap it up. If my co-host don't mind, please let us know what you think about this leak for Marvel, that NRS, for Marvel game, whatever that may be. We don't even know anything, right? Because it's very far off. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about the WePlay issue with 1xBet. Again, let us know about all these issues. Let us know what you think. We will read the comments. We will consider them for the next podcast. And the next podcast, we will discuss it. A lot of tier lists came out like a couple of months ago, or whatever, a month ago, several weeks ago, that we would like to discuss the next podcast with you guys. But we had to talk about the Marvel stuff. We had to talk about the WePlay stuff because those were some of the, and obviously the movie before that, because those were, the primary topics that we wanted to discuss. The next podcast, tier lists. Let us know what you think about this podcast. We will see you in the next episode of the podcast. Guys, thank you so much for listening.